TypeScript just put out a release candidate for version 7, and this is going to be the version where TypeScript is not TypeScript. If you've been out of the loop, they've been working on rewriting the TypeScript compiler from TypeScript itself to Go, and apparently the results are 10 times faster. They expect to release TypeScript 7 in the next month, so let's go through what's actually changed, how fast it is, and if there's any breaking changes that you need to know about before you install it. So if you missed the news about them porting to Go, they actually started this about a year ago, and the TLDR is that they realized JavaScript was never built for the heavy CPU-bound work that a type checker does, so they began rewriting it into Go to great early success. They actually started by basically porting the existing implementation of TypeScript essentially line by line, so the type checking logic was all structurally the same and had the same behavior, and you could even see some of the functions were nearly identical besides the language. I'm also pretty sure that this was before you could just point Claude at your code base and say migrate to whatever language you want. I'm looking at you, bun. The results of the port actually speak for themselves. Here I have the Playwright repo, and if I do a type check using the old version of TypeScript here, we can see this takes around 6 seconds to complete, and it went through 1,400 files and 500,000 lines of code. If I now switch over to the release candidate without changing anything except this command, in total it took 0.87 seconds. That is a serious improvement. It also found the exact same amount of errors, the same errors, it went through the same files and all of the lines of code, so it works exactly the same as TypeScript 6. The native code of Go is just fundamentally quicker than JavaScript for a task like this, but it also allows them to use shared memory parallelism, so where the JavaScript compiler was single-threaded, Go can actually spread that type checking across multiple cores at once. In TypeScript 7, you can actually enforce it to be single-threaded with a flag, so maybe you're doing some debugging or you're running on a machine with limited resources, and if I do this in the Playwright codebase here with TypeScript 7, we can see that when single-threaded, this takes around 2 seconds, which is still 3 times faster than what it was before. Talking of running in parallel, they're also exposing a new checkers flag, which actually lets you set how many type checker workers can run in parallel, and this defaults to 4. Increasing this could speed up your builds on larger code bases if you have a lot of CPU cores, but it will come at the cost of extra memory usage. If I set the checkers to 8 in this Playwright repo, which is double the default, it does actually seem to shave another third off the time. There's also a new builders flag for parallelizing project reference builds, aka building multiple projects at once, and this flag lets you control the number of parallel builders that can run at once, and it's worth noting that if you combine this with checkers that we just saw, let's say you had 4 of each, that means you can have up to 16 type checkers running at once. Now, besides the native code changes and parallelism, another big rewrite in TypeScript 7 has been its watch mode. When they ported to Go, this was actually a little trickier, as the standard library doesn't provide built-in file watching APIs, and the third-party libraries they tried had issues with things like stability, performance, and cross-platform support. So the team actually looked at the Parcel Bundler's file watcher, which Microsoft actually uses a bit of in VS Code, but since it was in C++, they also had to port the parts of that they needed into Go as well. The good news is, though, that they did everything, and it seems to be working really smoothly and better than before. Next, though, since this is a major version bump, you might be expecting a lot of breaking changes, especially since this is a big rewrite, but I don't actually think there are any if you're upgrading from TypeScript 6 to 7. If you want to go from 5 to 7, there is going to be quite a few, so it seems that they're recommending that you go up to 6 first, get all of that working, and then the version bump to 7 should be no problem. A few of the big changes in TypeScript 6 were removing the ES5 target, removing base URL, and deprecating module systems AMD, UMD, and System.js. They also made strict true by default, they made module default to ESNext, and target defaults to the current stable ECMAScript version immediately preceding ESNext. It was basically a lot of leaving the past behind and modernizing TypeScript, which I really like, as sometimes trying to support legacy projects in every single version you make can really slow down the progress of a tool. Looking through the rest of this blog post, it actually seems that the only new feature or change that actually concerns the TypeScript language itself is that template literal types now preserve Unicode code points. Essentially, before TypeScript 7, TypeScript actually split on UTF-16 code units, so it would end up splitting an emoji in half, and you'd end up with these weird types for head and tails here. In TypeScript 7, however, it actually splits on whole code points, so complete characters, so now the emoji is preserved, and the split is pretty much as you would expect it to be. I would honestly be incredibly impressed if any of you have ever come across this in your time using TypeScript. All in all, these changes should make anything that uses TypeScript feel much faster, like TypeScript in your editor, especially for large projects. The stable release is expected within about a month, but a stable programmatic API, so the thing that tooling authors use to build on top of the compiler, is landing in version 7.1. Because of this, there is also a compatibility package, so you can run TypeScript 6 and 7 side by side without running into conflicts. Let me know what you think of all of this, and I'm curious if you've ever felt that TypeScript was feeling slow. Let me know in the comments. While you're down there, subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.